We're doing Christmas at home this year. Just the four of us. The kids need a calm holiday without all the extra noise. That was the text my daughter sent me 3 days before Christmas, right after I had spent ba cham tamulam home to save her husband's business from bankruptcy. I read those words sitting alone in my living room. The Christmas tree I decorated for a family gathering now blinking its lights at no one. Extra noise. That's what I had become to them. Not a mother. Not a grandmother. Just noise they wanted to eliminate from their perfect holiday picture. I didn't cry. I didn't call her back, demanding an explanation. I simply typed 2 words and hit send. Got it. Then I set my phone down on the coffee table and stared at the ornaments hanging on my tree, each one holding a memory of Christmases past when my presence was wanted, when my contributions were celebrated, when I was more than just a checkbook with inconvenient feelings attached. But before I tell you what happened next, I want to know something about you. Christmas is right around the corner, and I'm curious about your plans. Are you the one hosting this year? Are you the grandmother who spends weeks preparing? Or are you the one who shows up with gifts and gets shuffled to a corner while everyone else runs the show? Maybe you've been uninvited from a holiday too. Maybe you know exactly what that text message feels like when it lands in your inbox like a punch to the gut. Drop a comment below and tell me your story. Tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever had your own moment of revenge against someone who treated you like you didn't matter, I definitely want to hear about that. Now, subscribe and hit that like button, because what I'm about to tell you is going to make your jaw drop. Let me take you back to where this really started. My name is Dorothy Brennan. I'm 67 years old, and I've lived in Scottsdale, Arizona, for the past 22 years. My husband Richard passed away 9 years ago from pancreatic cancer. It happened fast. Just 4 months from diagnosis to funeral, and in that short window, my entire world collapsed and rebuilt itself into something smaller, quieter, and lonelier than I ever imagined it would be. Richard and I had one daughter, Caroline. She was the light of our lives, a bright, ambitious girl who got a scholarship to Arizona State and graduated with honors in business administration. We were so proud of her. So incredibly proud. When she met Derek at a networking event 6 years ago, I wanted to be happy for her. I really did. He was charming, successful, ran his own marketing agency with a roster of impressive clients. He drove a nice car, wore expensive watches, and talked about the future like it was something he could bend to his will. But there was something about Derek that never sat right with me. The way he interrupted Caroline mid-sentence. The way he made decisions for both of them without asking her opinion first. The way he looked at my modest home with barely concealed disdain, as if living within your means was something to be ashamed of. Richard noticed it too. Before he got sick, "That man sees people as tools," he told me once. "And he's going to use our daughter until she breaks." I should have listened to my husband. I should have said something before they got married. But mothers learn early that criticizing their children's partners rarely ends well, so I kept my mouth shut, smiled at the wedding, and hoped I was wrong about everything. I wasn't. After they married, Caroline changed. Slowly at first, then faster. She stopped calling me on her own. Every conversation went through Derek first, scheduled and supervised like I was a business contact rather than her mother. When my grandchildren were born, first Emma, then little Marcus 2 years later, I thought things might get better. Babies have a way of softening people, of reminding everyone what really matters. But Derek saw the children as extensions of his image, accessories to his perfect family brand. And my role in that brand was strictly limited. I could visit on approved days. I could bring gifts that met their standards. I could babysit when they needed free childcare. But I could not show up unannounced. I could not spoil the kids with treats Derek deemed inappropriate. I could not, under any circumstances, undermine the parenting philosophy Derek had downloaded from some podcast about raising high-achieving children. I accepted these rules because the alternative was not seeing my grandchildren at all. I told myself it was normal, that all families had boundaries, that Derek was just protective and particular. I made excuses for behavior that should have had me running in the opposite direction. Then came the night everything changed. It was October 15th, 3 days after Emma's 5th birthday party. A party I had paid for, by the way, $2,000 for a princess-themed celebration that Derek insisted had to be at a specific venue with specific vendors. I didn't mind. I loved spoiling my granddaughter. What I minded was being seated at a back table with the other grandparents while Derek's business partners got the front row seats near the cake. But I swallowed that hurt too, added it to the pile of small indignities I'd been collecting for years. Went home and told myself it didn't matter. Then my phone rang at 11:30 at night. Caroline's number. My heart immediately started racing because late-night calls from your children are never good news. Mom. Her voice was shaking. Not crying exactly, but close. That trembling sound people make when they're trying to hold themselves together and failing. Caroline, what's wrong? Are the kids okay? The kids are fine. They're asleep. Mom, I need to tell you something, but you have to promise not to say I told you so. I gripped the phone tighter. I promise. Just tell me what's happening. Derek's company is in trouble. Serious trouble. His biggest clients left last year, and he's been hiding how bad things have gotten. We're 3 months behind on our mortgage. The business has loans he can't pay. If something doesn't change in the next 60 days, we're going to lose everything. The house, the cars, everything. I sat down slowly on the edge of my bed. How much are we talking about? Silence. Then, quietly, $385,000. That's what we need to clear the immediate debts and restructure the business loans. The bank is willing to work with us, but only if we can show them we have the capital to get current. $385,000. I let that number sink in. It wasn't impossible. Richard and I had been careful our entire lives. We'd saved, invested, bought a rental property that generated income. After he died, his life insurance added to our nest egg. I had just over $400,000 in liquid assets, money I'd planned to use for my own emergencies, for medical care if I needed it, for the assisted living facility I might eventually require. If I gave them that money, I'd have almost nothing left. Mom, are you still there? I'm here. I'm just thinking. I know it's a lot to ask. I know I have no right to ask you for anything, especially after how Derek has treated you, but the kids, Mom, Emma, and Marcus. If we lose the house, if Derek's business collapses completely, I don't know what we'll do. I don't know where we'll go. In the background, I heard Derek's voice. Muffled but urgent. Did she say yes? What's she saying? Of course he was listening. Of course he was orchestrating this call, using my daughter as the messenger because he knew I'd never say yes if he asked himself. Let me talk to my financial advisor in the morning, I said carefully. I'll call you tomorrow. We hung up. I didn't sleep at all that night, just lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Richard's words. That man sees people as tools. He's going to use our daughter until she breaks. Now he was trying to use me too. But what choice did I have? My grandchildren's stability was at stake. My daughter's future. Yes, Derek was a manipulative narcissist who treated me like an inconvenience. But Caroline was still my baby, and Emma and Marcus were innocent in all of this. Could I really watch them lose their home over my grudge against their father? The next morning, I called Gerald, my financial advisor, and explained the situation. His silence spoke volumes. Dorothy. This is everything you have. If you do this, there's no safety net left. No cushion for emergencies. If something happens to you, medically or otherwise, you'll have nothing to fall back on. I know. And you're giving this to your son-in-law. A man who, from what you've told me over the years, doesn't exactly treat you with respect. It's for Caroline. For my grandchildren. Gerald sighed heavily. At least let me draft a protection agreement. Something that establishes this as a loan, not a gift. Something that gives you legal recourse if things go south. Fine, whatever you think is necessary. And, Dorothy, get your own lawyer to review it before they sign. Not theirs, yours. I took his advice. My attorney, Sandra Kim, had handled Richard's estate and had known our family for years. When I explained what I was about to do, she looked at me with the same concern Gerald had shown. You're about to give away your financial security to someone who has consistently marginalized you, she said flatly. You understand that, right? I understand. Then let me add some protections that might actually matter. She pulled out a legal pad and started writing. First, we structure this as a formal loan with clear terms. No repayment schedule required, but the debt is documented and enforceable. Second, we include a respect and inclusion clause. Nothing dramatic, just language stating that your continued support is conditional on maintaining a reasonable family relationship. What does that mean? Practically, it means if they systematically exclude you from significant family events, if they treat you with documented disrespect, you have the right to call in the loan immediately. Full amount due within 30 days. I hesitated. That seems harsh. Dorothy, you're giving them almost $400,000. The least they can do is invite you to Christmas dinner. She had a point. There's one more thing I want to add, Sandra continued. A transparency clause. If anyone makes false statements about this transaction, if they try to paint you as the villain down the road, you have the legal right to share these documents with anyone you choose. Family, friends, community members. Full disclosure protection. I agreed to everything. A week later, I met Caroline and Derek at a coffee shop with the documents in hand. Derek was all smiles, suddenly warm and attentive in a way he'd never been before. He shook my hand like I was a valuable client. He thanked me 3 times before we even sat down. This means the world to us, Dorothy, he said, using my first name for the first time in 6 years. You're literally saving our family. Let's go over the agreement first, I said, sliding the folder across the table. Derek picked it up, flipped through a few pages, then set it down. Looks standard. Where do I sign? You should read it carefully. Both of you. Mom. We trust you, Caroline said, already reaching for a pen. If you and your lawyer think this is fair, then it's fair. They signed on every dotted line without reading a single word. I watched them do it, watched Derek's confident scrawl across the signature pages, watched my daughter initial clauses she'd never even glanced at. Part of me wanted to stop them, to make them understand what they were agreeing to, but another part of me, the part that had been hurt and dismissed for years, thought maybe it was better if they didn't know exactly what protections I'd built in. The money transferred within 48 hours. I watched my accounts drain in real time, $400,000 reduced to $15,000. A lifetime of careful saving, gone in a few clicks. For the first month, everything seemed better. Derek was almost pleasant during our visits. Caroline called more often. The children seemed happier. I told myself the sacrifice had been worth it, that money could buy peace in a family if you spent it right. Then, the invitations stopped. First, it was a Sunday dinner I learned about through a photo Caroline posted online. There was my daughter, my grandchildren, and Derek, all seated around a table with friends I didn't recognize. The caption read, "Grateful for our chosen family." Chosen family. As if the family she was born into didn't count. Then, it was Emma's school play. I found out about it afterward when Marcus mentioned they'd gone to see his sister be a butterfly. No one had told me. No one had thought to call. Then it was Thanksgiving. I'd assumed we'd spend it together, the way we had every year. I'd already bought a turkey, planned the menu, set aside money for decorations, but 3 days before the holiday, Caroline texted that they were going to Derek's parents' house instead. They asked first, she wrote, as if holiday attendance was first come first served. I spent Thanksgiving alone, eating a turkey breast I'd made for one, watching the Macy's parade on a television that suddenly felt too big for my small living room. I told myself things would be different at Christmas. Christmas had always been our holiday, mine and Caroline's. Even after Derek entered the picture, we'd maintained the tradition of Christmas Eve at my house, stockings hung, cookies left for Santa, the kids waking up to presents under my tree. I decorated early this year, put up the tree the day after Thanksgiving, wrapped presents with extra care, bought matching pajamas for the kids, the kind we'd wear while opening gifts together. I even bought a gift for Derek, an expensive golf club he'd mentioned wanting, because I was trying. Still trying. Always trying. Then came that text. December 22nd, 8:14, in the evening. My phone buzzed while I was addressing Christmas cards. We're doing Christmas at home this year. Just the 4 of us. The kids need a calm holiday without all the extra noise. Hope you understand. Extra noise. My hands were shaking as I read those words. Extra noise. After everything I'd done, everything I'd given, I'd been reduced to a disturbance. Something that disrupted their calm. something they needed protection from. I thought about calling Caroline immediately, demanding to know what this meant. I thought about driving to their house and confronting Derek directly. I thought about crying, screaming, begging to be included. Instead, I walked to my closet and pulled down a folder I'd tucked away months ago. The folder Sandra had given me after they signed the agreement. The one with copies of every document, every clause, every protection. I'd been too kind to think I'd ever need. I sat on my bed and read through everything again. The respect and inclusion clause, the systematic exclusion language, the transparency provision, the 30-day repayment demand. Then I picked up my phone and typed 2 words. Got it. I didn't sleep well that night, but when I woke up on December 23rd, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Clarity. The kind that comes when you finally stop lying to yourself about who people really are and what they really think of you. I called Sandra at 9 in the morning. I want to invoke the clause, I said. All of it. She was quiet for a moment. You're sure? They uninvited me from Christmas. Said I was extra noise. I gave them everything, Sandra. Everything Richard and I built together, and I'm noise to them. I'll prepare the documents today. Given the holiday, the formal notice will go out on the 26th. They'll receive it electronically, certified digital delivery. Perfect. Dorothy, they're going to panic. They're going to call you, show up at your house, probably cry and beg. Are you prepared for that? I looked at my Christmas tree, still lit, still beautiful, still surrounded by presents no one would open. Yes. I'm prepared. Christmas Day came and went. I made myself a nice meal, watched old movies, called a friend who was also spending the holiday alone. It was quiet, but it was mine. And somewhere across town, my daughter and her husband were having their perfect calm Christmas, completely unaware that the woman they'd dismissed was about to change everything. The notice went out at 10 in the morning on December 26th. By 10:45, my phone started exploding. 53 missed calls by noon. Derek, Caroline, Derek again. An unknown number that turned out to be Derek's mother. Caroline again, this time leaving voicemails I could hear her crying through. Derek, now leaving angry messages instead of desperate ones. I didn't answer any of them. At 2 in the afternoon, they showed up at my door. Both of them, wild-eyed and panicked. Derek was still in the clothes he'd probably slept in. Caroline had been crying so hard her makeup had run down her cheeks. Mom, open the door. Please. We need to talk about this letter. I opened the door but didn't step aside to let them in. What letter? You know what letter, Derek snapped. The one demanding $385,000 in 30 days, or you're putting a lien on our house. Our house, Dorothy. The house we just saved. The house I saved, I corrected him. With my money. Money you both agreed to pay back under certain conditions. What conditions? We never agreed to any conditions. You signed the documents. We didn't read them. We trusted you. That sounds like a personal problem. Caroline stepped forward, her voice breaking. Mom, please. There has to be a mistake. You wouldn't do this to us. To your grandchildren. You wouldn't take their home away. I'm not taking anything. I'm asking for my money back. The money you agreed to repay if you systematically excluded me from family events. Which you have. For months, culminating in a text message calling me extra noise. Derek's face went red. This is insane. You can't call in alone because you're upset about Christmas. I can. When it's in the contract you signed, would you like me to show you the specific clause? It's on page 7. Right above your signature. They stared at me like they'd never seen me before. And maybe they hadn't. Maybe they'd only ever seen the version of me I'd allowed them to see. The accommodating mother. The endless well of patience. The woman who gave and never asked for anything in return. That woman was gone now. You have 29 days, I said. I suggest you talk to your lawyer. I closed the door. What followed was the longest month of my life, but also somehow the most peaceful. I stopped answering their calls. I stopped reading their texts. I let their panic exist in a world separate from mine. A world I no longer had to participate in. But I wasn't naive. I knew Jenna would start spinning the story before the paint was dry on her tears. And I was right. Within a week, Sandra called to tell me she'd received inquiries from 3 different family members who'd heard I was cruelly demanding money back from my struggling daughter. Derek's version had apparently spread fast. I was a bitter old woman, using legal tricks to control my family. I was punishing my daughter for wanting independence. I was so lonely and desperate for attention that I'd rather destroy their lives than accept being left out of one holiday. "Do you want to invoke the transparency clause?" Sandra asked. "Yes. Send the full documentation package to everyone who contacts you, the signed agreement, the text message, the timeline of exclusions, everything. This is going to spread fast once people see it." "Good, let them see." The documents went out. And then, something beautiful happened. The people Derek had poisoned against me started calling back. One by one, they read the evidence. They saw the text message calling me noise. They saw the signature on an agreement Derek clearly hadn't bothered to read. They saw the months of canceled dinners and missed birthdays and excluded holidays. And they saw me, the woman who gave up everything she had to help, being told she wasn't welcome in the home her money saved. My sister called first. "Dorothy, I'm so sorry. He made it sound like you just snapped and decided to punish them for no reason. I had no idea about any of this." Then my cousin, then a neighbor, then a woman from my book club who'd been friends with Derek's mother. One after another, people reached out to apologize for believing the lie. Derek's mother even called me, though I suspect that was more about damage control than genuine remorse. "This is embarrassing for our entire family," she said stiffly. "Can't you settle this quietly? Your son called me noise. He excluded me from my grandchildren's lives for months. And now he's spreading lies about me to anyone who will listen. Quiet isn't an option anymore." I hung up. On January 15th, 9 days before the deadline, something unexpected happened. My phone rang, and for once, it wasn't Derek or Caroline. It was an attorney's office asking to schedule a meeting on behalf of Derek's parents. We met at a coffee shop. Derek's father, Harold, looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. His mother, Patricia, kept dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "We've seen everything," Harold said quietly. "The documents, the messages, all of it. Derek swore to us that you were the one being unreasonable. He said you'd given them the money with no strings attached, and now you were making up legal problems to hurt them. And now you know the truth. Now we know our son is a liar who doesn't deserve the help he's been given." Patricia leaned forward. "We're prepared to help. Financially. We can cover about $120,000. It's our savings, but we'd rather see it go to you than watch our grandchildren lose their home because of Derek's pride." I studied them carefully. "And what do you want in return?" "Nothing." "Well, one thing." Harold cleared his throat. "We want you to give Caroline another chance. Not Derek. We're not asking you to forgive him, but Caroline has been under his influence for years, and we think she's finally starting to see who he really is. The last few weeks have been a wake-up call. Has she said anything to you?" Patricia nodded. "She called us 2 days ago, crying, saying she didn't know how things had gotten so bad, that she'd let Derek control everything for so long she'd forgotten how to think for herself. She said she missed you, that she was ashamed of how she'd treated you, and didn't know how to fix it." Something in my chest loosened slightly. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something. "I'll consider it," I said. "But the agreement stands, until I see actual change. Not promises. Change." 3 days later, Caroline showed up at my door. Alone. She looked thinner than I remembered, tired in a way that went deeper than sleeplessness. When I opened the door, she didn't try to come in. She just stood there on the porch, hands clasped in front of her like a child waiting to be scolded. "I'm not here to ask you to drop the agreement," she said. "I know I don't have the right to ask for anything." "Then why are you here?" "Because I need you to know that I'm sorry. Not because we're about to lose the house. Not because Derek's parents are giving us money. Not because everyone we know has seen those documents and knows what we did." She took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry because I let him turn me into someone who treated her own mother like she didn't matter. And I don't know how that happened. I don't know when I became this person. I didn't say anything, just waited. After Dad died, you were so strong. So together, you handled everything alone and made it look easy, and I think some part of me resented you for that. I was falling apart, and you seemed fine, and when Derek came along and told me I needed to set boundaries with you, it was easy to believe him. It was easier than admitting I was jealous of my own mother's strength. I felt tears prick my eyes but didn't let them fall. You were jealous of me? You lost your husband, and you kept going. You rebuilt your life alone. I couldn't even handle my husband's financial stress without calling you for help. Her voice cracked, and then when you helped us, when you gave us literally everything you had, I should have been on my knees with gratitude. Instead, I let Derek convince me that distance was healthy, that you were being too involved, that the kids needed space from their grandmother. He called me noise. I know. And I didn't argue with him. I just sent the text like he told me to. That's the worst part. I didn't even push back. She wiped her eyes. I'm filing for divorce. I stared at her. What? These last few weeks, seeing everything laid out in those documents, hearing from people we know that they finally see Derek for what he is, it broke something open. Or maybe it put something back together. I don't know. But I can't stay married to a man who taught me to throw my mother away. Caroline, you don't have to forgive me. I'm not asking for that. I just needed you to know that I see it now. All of it. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life being sorry that it took this much pain for me to wake up. We stood there in silence for a long moment. Then I stepped aside. Come in. I'll make some tea. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a happy ending where everyone hugged and the credits rolled. But it was a start. The deadline came and went. Between Derek's parents' contribution and the sale of several assets Derek had been hiding, they managed to come up with enough to satisfy the agreement. I got my money back. Not all of it immediately, but enough to rebuild my safety net, to feel secure again, to know that I wouldn't end up broke because I'd trusted the wrong people. Derek and Caroline are in the middle of their divorce now. It's messy and painful, and the kids are struggling to understand why Daddy moved out. But Caroline brings them to see me every weekend. We're rebuilding our relationship one visit at a time, one honest conversation at a time. Last week, Emma asked me why Grandma and Mommy had been sad for so long. I told her that sometimes grown-ups forget what's important, but the good ones figure it out eventually. Are you and Mommy good ones? She asked. We're trying to be, sweetheart. We're trying. If you've made it this far into my story, I want to hear from you. Was I right to enforce the agreement? Would you have given your daughter another chance? Have you ever had to choose between protecting yourself and protecting your family? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more stories like this. Stories about people who refused to be doormats, who stood up for themselves when everyone expected them to keep giving until there was nothing left. And remember this. Kindness without boundaries isn't kindness. It's an invitation to be used. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for the people who hurt you is to let them face the consequences of their actions. Because that's how they learn. That's how they grow. And sometimes, if you're lucky, that's how they find their way back to you. Thanks for listening.